it off. Darrell Mitchell and Tyrone Hughes are deep. Hughes, the Pro Bowl kick returner a year ago. Slips a couple of tackles and gets out to the 24-yard line. It's a new start for Jim. Brown and Neal are the running backs. And Everett to throw on first down. Dumps it off. Gain of about 5 for Derek Brown. Cowboys on defense. Jim for New Orleans. And Everett on the second play of the game takes a timeout. Russell Maryland has a stinger. He's expected to be back, injured on the opening kickoff. In the flat to Brown. Got around Smith and close to a first down up at the 32-yard line. Darren Woodson, the strong side safety, made the tackle. And Russell Maryland checking back in.
Looks like a fighter that just came out of the corner. Little neck movement, little right jab to get loose.
Excellent defensive tackle, but has some bad feet that they hope he'll be able to shake this year and be able to play full time along with Leon Lett. They'll also use Chad Hennings as they alternate the defensive lineman. Torrance Small comes into the ballgame on 3rd and 2. He's number 83 for the Saints. And Everett throwing for the first down. Torrance Small makes the catch in front of Darren Woodson. First down, New Orleans.
Jim Everett getting good protection from the left side where William Rolfe has moved over, number 77. And that's Shante Carver, their rookie #1 choice. Shante's given away 60 pounds to Rolfe. Nice inside route. You just freeze the defensive back. Jim reads man-to-man coverage, picks up the first down. Very methodical.
1st and 10 at the 40. Everett to throw again, and it's intercepted, picked off by Dixon Edwards, right through the hands of Derek Brown. A gift for the 4th-year man out of Michigan State, and a good throw by Everett.
You can't fault the throw. There's certainly no question about that. It's a short little halfback delay. He comes in motion. As he comes out, he gets by the linebacker. Jim gets some pressure, but he hangs tough in the pocket. There's the throw. What happens is, I'll tell you what he saw, is he saw the linebacker coming in the middle, and out of the corner of his eye, he didn't concentrate on the ball.
Dallas with the first break of the ball game from the New Orleans 36, and Aikman to throw. And knocked down, intended for Urban, and a heck of a defensive play by Reginald Jones.
This is a little hook by the wide receiver, swing by the back. Michael comes back, but he doesn't quite come back hard to the ball. Yes, there was contact before. There should have been a flag, but there wasn't. So there.
And Irvin does such a great job of shielding the ball with his body. Wilson and Smith, the running backs. Emmett couldn't dance well enough in the hole. Brought down. Let's take a look at the Dallas offense. Troy Aikman has shown every quality you want in a quarterback, and he keeps getting better. Last year, only 6 interceptions, 15 touchdowns. Emmitt Smith won the league rushing title after spotting the competition the first 2 games. 3 years in a row, he's been #1. Eric Williams has become the most dominating young lineman in the league. Size, quickness, and technique made him a Pro Bowl starter. Mark Stepnoski in the Dallas lineup for the first time since last December when he was injured. The big addition to that outstanding line. Aikman with the bomb. There's a flag down, and Irvin can't handle it. Knocked away at the last minute by Jimmy Spencer. Now we'll check the penalty. Boy, the New Orleans corners, 2 plays in a row, have had excellent coverage.
I think that's the one area that the New Orleans Saints, well, as a matter of fact, Steve Sidwell, our coach, their coach, mentioned it. He said that that's the area they feel like they can be better at.
Before the snap, number 80 offense, 5 yards, still 3rd down.
Alvin Harper.
You try and go up one-on-one. It's 3rd and long. Jimmy Spencer running foot for foot. Does a nice job at the last minute just getting his hand up.
So it is 3rd and 15 for Troy Aikman.
I'm going to send you out. That's not my rule, it's a league rule.
And now they're asking the stadium scoreboard operator to reset the game clock.
Well, the reason why is the play was blown dead before the ball was thrown.
Aikman with great protection dumps it short to Emmitt Smith. He will not get the first down as he reaches the 32. Good job by the Saints defense. And from this spot, it would be a 49-yard field goal attempt for the rookie Chris Boniol. And there's Sam Mills, the only member of the Dome Patrol left. It was a group of linebackers that went to the Pro Bowl together, unprecedented.
And it'll never happen again, not in the age of free agency.
The rookie out of Louisiana Tech who won the kicking job in camp, but everyone says tentatively if he starts to go bad, they'll have someone else in here in a heartbeat. And it's blocked. What a defensive stand by the New Orleans Saints, and Frank Warren gets the block. First quarter because of this play by the Saints special teams.
What happens, you'll see right in the middle, see all those guys bunched, they get the push, the hand's going to go up by Frank Warren, and what he's going to wind up doing is knocking it back in his face. Nice penetration up the middle. And I think that's the classic problem you run into with a rookie kicker, is they kick the ball low because they're a far distance out.
Trying to drive it. Lorenzo Neal, the single setback behind Everett. Dumps it short again, this time complete to Michael Haynes, the speed burner they got from Atlanta, to the 46-yard line.
Good job by Rolfe. Again, William Rolfe doing a nice job. Shante Carver making him take the long way around. He knows how deep Jim Everett goes. He knows where to set. There comes Michael just moving through traffic. Does a nice job. Everybody thinks he's just a speed guy, but he has a nice ability to work in traffic.
Derek Brown. First down to midfield. There's a flag down on the play right at the end of it. And it looked like Chris Port, big number 70, out there blocking for him, and apparently was also holding.
It's amazing. They throw 5 straight passes, no holding penalties. They run the ball one time, they get a holding penalty.
Holding, number 60, offense, 10 yards, repeat second down.
That's Craig Nowitzki, who is starting at center tonight, the rookie from UCLA.
There's big Nowitzki, rookie. What he's going to do, he's going to grab on and not let go. Got to keep those hands inside. Got to keep them inside. I think it's a lousy call. If that's the holding on him, it's a lousy call.
Yeah, and I don't get that. The flag was thrown 5 yards downfield. Neal. Dragging tacklers forward. Darren Smith makes the tackle. Neal hurt a year ago. Broke his ankle in the second game. In 6 quarters, he gained 175 yards. A good-looking prospect, as was Derek Brown. And the Saints in the last few years have had a terrible time with getting running backs hurt.
Well, when you look at the yards per carry, which I think is an indication for running backs, 21 carries, 8.3 yards. Long run of 74 yards. He's not only big at 240, but he has a lot of speed.
Everett to the shotgun on 3rd and 10. Good protection. Throw sideline complete to Haynes, but he's short of the first down marker. Up to about the 46, and the punt team will come on.
I think Jim Everett is just going to get better and better the more comfortable and more familiar he is with this offense. He stands, you know, this thing about him not being a tough guy, that's just a bunch of baloney. You know, you get free runners coming at you. Joe Montana has free runners coming at him. He's not going to necessarily stand there and punch him in the nose either.
Clayton Holmes will receive the punt of Tommy Barnhart. And Barnhart is going to be buried after the bad snap. So mistakes on special teams for both clubs.
Joe Avizano and his special team Dallas Cowboys just continue to make things happen. Last week it's a punt return for a touchdown. Now they don't allow the punter to get it off.
Wesley Walls, this deep snapper.
Joe Marciano, he wants to know what's going on. Nice decision by Tom Barnhart. Good decision not to try and kick this. Bad snap. Good decision to eat it, take the loss, let the defense go play.
Cowboys back on offense. Emmett dancing in the hole. Has not had the kind of running room tonight that he had a week ago with his first action of the preseason where he looked so good. Dallas had held its stars out most of the preseason. Harper, Irvin, Smith. But they came back with a vengeance last week, didn't they?
Every time he turned around, he was going up for 8-9 yards.
2nd and 9 for Dallas. Aikman with time. Beautiful throw, complete to the sideline. Irvin forced out. He's got the first down. Let's take a look at that Saint defense that really came apart last year. Even though his sack total was off dramatically from 92, Wayne Martin was the Saints' most effective lineman and an excellent run stopper. Sam Mills, the only remaining All-Pro member of the linebacking corps, he's trying to come back from a year virtually lost to injury. And Vince Buck moves from left corner to free safety in a much altered secondary to try to take advantage of his ball hawking skills. 1st and 10, Cowboys. Smith. He's running behind Robert Wilson, who got to start at fullback tonight. Darrell Johnston and Tommy Agee both hurt. And right now, Dallas only has 4 healthy running backs on the roster.
Well, I still think this Saint defensive team as a unit is, although it was an area last year they didn't excel at, is really tough against the run. I mean, they have a lot of people around the ball. They've got good, quick, experienced guys up front. Wayne Martin, Frank Warren, and Les Miller. And, of course, the field mouse continues to patrol in his little area.
Last year, they dropped all the way to 25th. 2 years ago, they were 2nd in the league. Aikman in the flat. Irvin making that great after-the-catch move to get some more yardage. Reginald Jones took him out of bounds. Did you hear Jimmy Johnson's comment this morning? The ex-Dallas coach, the offense may be better than ever, and I think you got to agree with him.
I think so, possibly. I think the addition of Derek Kennard gives them another big body up front. And, of course, if you're a head coach like Barry Switzer now, it's not bad to have a very good team continue to improve with little bits and pieces.
Kevin Williams, the second-year player, in at a wide receiver. 3rd and 4, here comes the blitz. Emmett behind Newton. And they did a nice job of corralling him, but he got inside the 10 to about the 9. It will be 4th and short for Dallas.
Well, Sean Lumpkin, who's starting at safety, does a good job of coming up, forcing Emmett back inside and making the play.
Well, when that play started with Newton out in front, it looked like it would go all the way. And here comes the field goal unit on 4th and less than a yard.
But is it going to be a field goal?
Good question. Boniol out of Louisiana Tech had the first one blocked. This will be at 26. He had hit 4 for 4 coming in. And now make it 5 for 5. And after a 26-yard field goal, the Dallas Cowboys draw first blood. 3-0, first quarter, 6:14 to go. Everything seems to revolve around the arts here in New Orleans. Didn't know Nike made tap shoes.
They're the new ones.
Down on Bourbon Street in the French Quarter. And we are back in the Dome just a few short minutes away. And the Cowboys open up with a 3-0 lead. Boniol to kick to Mitchell and Tyrone Hughes, number 2 in the league a year ago. Very short, takes a bounce, and Hughes has to field it at the 16. And just got back to the 20-yard line.
Michael, I'm sure you're curious, as you are each game, to find out what the agendas are for different coaches.
Absolutely.
This is the Cowboy agenda. and Barry Switzer's agenda in particular. He wants to build a relationship with the coaches and players. That was his #1 priority. And looking for a north-south run stopper at the middle linebacker position. Robert Jones had the job a year ago, but you can't allow guys to get by you like this. He's going to have to improve. And in talking to him, he has learned a lot.
Mario Bates, the rookie, in at running back along with Derek Ned. Bates, have high hope for this young man. Robert Jones on the sideline suffered a concussion last week on the opening kickoff. The starter 2 years ago, then replaced by Ken Norton. He is a great physical player. The problem has been he has been out of position. And Godfrey Miles gets his shot tonight. Has had an excellent camp at middle linebacker. It's a new position for him, too. Go with a toss. The pitch went to Mario Bates. Second-round draft choice out of Arizona State, runs a 4.440.
That's interesting. That's the second time, Mike. That was a great run, but it's the second time that he's sort of tripped over his own feet. And I happen to think that a little bit of the problem. See how the tape on the bottom of his feet has gone under around by his heel? I think what he's doing is he's losing traction on this surface with the tape on the bottom of his feet. He'll learn that that stuff down there doesn't do him any good when he's trying to cut side to side.
Bates again. Runs hard this time, shows some power in addition to the speed. He's out to the 42-yard line. Darren Woodson made the tackle. 2 years ago, Bates had surgery on his left knee, came back to be first-team All-Pac-10.
What makes a running game happen is pushing people off the line. Watch the push here by this side of the Saints line. Watch him move off the ball. Big push up the field. Good block by Smith coming down on the linebacker, and you block the yardage.
Derek Ned gets a couple of tough yards up the middle.
Like we talked about it in the open, the philosophy of the New Orleans Saints is to be more aggressive, a more attacking style of football team on both sides of the ball. Part of that has to do with simplifying the run blocking and letting them fire out on man-to-man blocks and then let the backs cut accordingly.
And all the offensive linemen seem to like to change. If they can stay healthy, this team can run the football, and if they have a running game, Jim Everett can be a very effective quarterback. Bates again. A nice hold. James Washington comes up from the corner to slug him. Washington, of course, had that brilliant Super Bowl. A lot of people thought he deserved the MVP award after running back that the fumble for a touchdown.
And if you ask and you read and you listen, James Washington was not sorry to see Jimmy Johnson leave because Johnson benched him last year. So now he figures new coach, new opportunity. I'm back out here.
He got the job back with Thomas Everett departing. 1st and 10 Saints. Play action by Everett. Completes it down to the 41-yard line, and the New Orleans Saints have looked very good on offense. Quinn Early made that catch. And Quinn Early's got to be the happiest guy in the world to have Michael Haynes on the other side. It opens it up.
And I'll tell you, Jim Everett's got to be the happiest guy in the world to see William Rolfe on the left side. Look what he does to Shante Carver. I mean, Shante is a non-factor right there. Look at this. Right on the line. Stay where you are. Nice release. Nice route. Excellent hands. Of course, Q's always had great hands.
Spotted at the 41. Everett with good protection again this time. Deep and just overthrown to Haynes. He was covered by Kevin Smith. The crowd wanted a flag. Haynes, the deep threat that Jim Mora has literally never had in New Orleans.
Michael Haynes has got the speed. I feel like they've got to use him 3 or 4 times a game, if for no other reason, to scare the defense. Smith makes the turn. Haynes is flat out running him. Ball's thrown a little bit behind him. He got a little bit on the shoulder, a little bit on the helmet, but the ball, I believe, was ruled uncatchable. I think that's why it went that way.
Haynes 3 times he's caught a touchdown pass of 80 or better. The Saints in their history have only done it twice. There's a flag down on the play as Irv Smith, the tight end, refuses to go down after the catch. We'll check the marker, and it will be holding against New Orleans. Oh, mistakes are the only thing that are holding back the Saints. Every time they have not had a penalty, they have moved the football.
It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. There's a song.
Don't sing it.
I'm not.
Thank you.
Holding, number 70 offense, 10 yards, repeat second down.
That's Chris Port. Our presentation of college football begins next Thursday night at 7:30 with a weekend kickoff show presented by Russell Athletic. Chris Fowler, Craig James, and Lee Corso will preview Saturday's big opening games. Then at 7:56, we hope you'll join me, Mike Gottfried, and Jerry Punch from Bobby Dodd Stadium in Atlanta as Georgia Tech hosts number 8 Arizona. We'll get a look at that 94 version of Desert Swarm, that awesome defense. Sports Illustrated ranks Arizona number 1 this year. Incomplete pass intended for Smith. Godfrey Miles on the coverage.
Well, when you're a second-year player and you've got a rookie ahead of you, Shante figures, well, listen, I can't power rush him. Let me see if I can shake him, bake him. I can't do that. Now, William, being a second-year man, knows just how to hold long enough so that he doesn't get the flag. Shante
Carver had high praise for Dallas offensive tackles in practice. He says, they've been kicking my butt, and that hasn't happened in a long time. 3rd and 20 for the Saints. Everett on a half roll. Throws back against the grain, up for grabs and incomplete. The only one who had a legitimate shot at it was Larry Brown.
Well, I'll tell you, a lot of credit to Larry Brown being disciplined. His receiver went to the right side of the field. He stayed there, saw Quinn Early coming back on the crossing pattern. He did a good job of staying at home. Quinn Early does a nice job of going up to try and make a play on the ball so it's not intercepted. That's something a quarterback appreciates.
Barnhart hoping for a better snap this time to kick to Clayton Holmes. We haven't seen Kevin Williams, the brilliant punt returner, back there yet. We expect to. Big rush, and they got it. The Cowboys, 2 punts in a row. Joe Fishback, gun straight up the middle. Cowboys working hard on special teams. Timeout, 3-0 Dallas. And Dallas, one of the teams able to retain some of their special teams demons. Aikman to Novacek right off his hands. Well, if you got a VCR running, keep a copy of that one. You won't see Novacek drop one again this year.
You know, back to the special teams, Mike. The Cowboys have to find their hired guns, the guys that they need on that ball club. There's a couple of them. I mean, they've blocked 8 punts since 1991. 8. That's Kenneth Gant. There's Billy Bates. He's been the captain of that special teams unit forever.
Draw to Emmitt Smith. Running room this time, then gang tackled as he got to the 38-yard line. It'll be 3rd and about 3. He hits the hole so fast.
He has great vision. He's a dancer. I mean, that's exactly what it is. He gets the ball, he sees it, he dances it, but he's always dancing forward. He's never dancing sideways.
Off-season arthroscopic knee surgery. Led the NFL in total yards from scrimmage as well as rushing. Aikman throws underneath. Novacek fumbles the football after he made the catch, and the Saints have it. Joel Smengi with the recovery. Well, you've seen Novacek do 2 things he's not going to do during the regular season.
No, it wasn't a question of trying to protect it from an outside guy. He just got the ball knocked away from him by an excellent job by Smengi. Jay Novacek right here. He's going to go out, run a little press out move. Troy's going to drop back. Just get it off to him. Little slide, easy release, easy pitch and catch. Tries to put it away. Nice job coming up, knocking it away. Sean Lumpkin. Schmengi winds up with the ball.
And Schmengi, the guy that they feel has to replace Ricky Jackson. They lost him. Mario Bates, the single set back behind Everett. A lot of action here in the first quarter and only 3 points on the board. Bates across the 40 to about the 41-yard line, where Leon Lett, number 78, was in on the stop.
I think what you're going to start to see Mario Bates do as he becomes more comfortable as a professional is be a little more aggressive in his running style. He runs a little bit like Eric Dickerson, quite upright. Doesn't have the slashing speed yet, nor you wouldn't expect him to make those good decisions yet.
He even runs a little bit like Eric Dickerson. They got something. That's the end of the first quarter. The Cowboys leading it 3-0. Their offense in the league. Bates, big hole. Woodson, after an 8-yard head start, hits him at the 49-yard line.
You know, maybe I'm a little goofy, but I really like that play as far as Mario Bates go. And the reason why is he runs high, and he gets a good shot put on him by Woodson, but he didn't cough the ball up. That means that he's a natural high runner who can protect the ball that way. I like that.
Well, you are a little goofy,
Okay.
but I like it too. Derek Ned checks in at fullback. Neal goes out.
I like little things like that.
It's that trained eye. Everett complete near a first down. Got it to Torrance Small. James Washington was there on the stop.
This is the perfect scenario for a quarterback. The line's blocking. They give back just enough ground. Look at the pocket. That means the center and guards are up front. There's the little pocket right there. The centers and guards are up front, and it works. Good blocking.
And except for one throw, Everett has been extremely sharp. Ned stumbled and is going to be shy of a first down.
Good play by Shante Carver. This time he didn't have to pass rush William Rolfe. What he did is he decided to take a hard inside and managed to trip up the ball carrier. Hard inside. There you go. Get inside. Now reach out. Now trip him. Good play.
Carver, who had a school record 41 sacks at Arizona State, right now penciled in to play behind Charles Haley as a designated pass rusher type player. Bates has the first down to the Dallas 40-yard line. We asked Jim Mora during the week to describe Bates, and he said he's fast. Yeah, he's fast.
Good way to describe it. Right, this is a situation where you run some play action and you get the ball up in the air to Michael Haynes. It's 1st and 10. You're on the other team's 40-yard line. You figure you can get enough ground with Morton Anderson to get a first down. Take a shot right here.
Everett with time goes near side. Beautiful diving catch by Small. A couple of steps in front of Larry Brown. Not a burner, but has decent speed and excellent hands.
This is what happens when a quarterback and a wide receiver get on the same page. Now he's going to press up the field, but the ball is thrown well back. Look at how he keeps coming back to the ball towards the sidelines. Has excellent idea where he is. Good field awareness, makes the nice reception. Good throw.
Jim Everett so far 8 out of 12. Bates down to the 26-yard line. Todrick McIntosh, the rookie from Florida State, makes the tackle on the rookie Bates.
Watch what's going to happen here. Everybody's going to go left defensively. He's just going to take the ball and cut it back. Good vision on his blocks. Sees the hole instinctively right there. Sees that crease, cuts it up inside.
Something you didn't see a year ago against the Dallas defense. People being able to run against those rotating tackles. Bates again. Another big hole. Bates to the 15-yard line. They may have a keeper here, Joe.
I really love him. I like talking to him. I like visiting with him. I like his approach and his philosophy. And you talk to anybody, any of his teammates, and they say he can be as good as he wants to be. What happens is Chad Hennings just gets blown out with the double team, and he takes it right up the gut. 95 gets double teamed by the guard and tackle, and there's a hole.
Chad Hennings, the 4-year Air Force veteran. New Orleans very impressive on this drive. Bates again. He got about 4 this time. Wrapped up by Godfrey Miles, the middle linebacker, number 98. Miles at 242, certainly big enough to play in the middle. Maybe not the physical presence that Robert Jones is. And Bates is going to get a much-deserved breather. 56 yards tonight. And had 133 coming in. That made him the leader in the preseason. 2nd and 7. And Vaughn Dunbar checks in for the first time. He's 32 and gets the carry. Now it's Ned. And Ned fumbles the football. The Saints recover at the 7-yard line. Tight end Wesley Walls. The ball just shot out of the arms of Derek Ned. It looked like somebody got a helmet on.
Hey, Darren Woodson is earning his keep in that secondary. He just comes up and flat nails him. Watch number 28 come into the picture. Ball's out a little bit. No, it's pretty well protected. He bounces, then helmet on the ball. Excellent tackle.
Wesley Walls has missed 2 straight years with a shoulder injury. Getting a chance to play. Comes up with a big recovery there. Bates back in the game, trying to get the first down, leans forward and has it inside the 5-yard line. Woodson couldn't stop him that time. He's shown an excellent combination of speed and power.
You love to see a back finish forward. To me, the ultimate in the league is Marcus Allen. Anybody hits him, he's always finishing forward. Nice job collapsing the left side. Now, he knows it's one-on-one, and he still manages to get forward. William Rolfe, one thing he talked to us about was finishing the block. That has to do with strangling the guy when he's on the ground.
First and goal. Ned inside the 1. There's a marker down. We'll check the call from Gordon McCarter. And the indication against Dallas.
I think it could be defensively Dallas lining up in what's considered the neutral zone or being on, it's offside. The situation is the rule change and the enforcement of it, I should say, is that they cannot have a helmet inside the ball. And the offensive lineman can move a little bit further back.
Offside, number 95 defense lined up in the neutral zone.
That's Hennings.
Decline, 2nd down.
Right there. See, Chad's head is in. He's got to keep it outside that ball. If it touches it, he's in trouble. But you can see how far the offensive line is off the ball.
Neal and Bates are the backs. Bates, touchdown.
Guarantee you that play and that drive right there has got a lot of people asking questions about the defensive front 4 and front 7 of the Dallas Cowboys.
And it's got a lot of people here very happy about a New Orleans offensive line.
Watch the right side. That whole right side gets a push. He goes right into the hole, right into the end zone. Good job. They got low. They did what they had to do. Super block by everybody up front.
Morton Anderson on for the point after. High snap. They got it down, and Anderson put it through. Bates gained 32 yards on that drive. He has 58 for the game on 11 carries, and that touchdown.
So it can maintain effectiveness for 60 minutes.
Morton Anderson to kick to Brock Marion and Clayton Holmes. And Anderson puts it down to the 1. Clayton Holmes back to the 20, takes a big shot and dropped it to 21. Tyrone Leggett downfield.
Another approach.
But still one of the few guys in the league who can put the ball down to the 1-yard line. Rodney Peete is in at quarterback. Lincoln Coleman is in at running back. So the Dallas Stars in the backfield have ended their night early. Troy got his work in.
Threw the ball well. He always throws the ball well.
And Emmett ran well. I think they're ready.
I believe they are ready. I think this has always been the toughest preseason game to play as a player. The most important thing you want to do is come out of here healthy. So you hold back a little bit.
Coleman and Wilson, the running backs. Coleman changed direction, has the first down and more up to the 39-yard line. Nice play by Lincoln Coleman. Started last year with Dallas of the Arena League. And all at once ends up being a Dallas Cowboy.
Yeah, but he only had 34 rushes through the course of the year. He had to come into camp. The coaches felt like he needed to get into shape. And he's really not a scat back. This is a guy that's got to run north and south on the field. He can't dance and slide. If he does, he's not going to dance very long.
He had the great game against Miami on Thanksgiving. 10 carries, 57 yards. He'll get another try here. Hit in the backfield. He just got back to the line of scrimmage. Les Miller, who's replacing Jim Wilkes at middle guard, started 11 games last year. Knife through to make the tackle. And Jim Mora thinks the run defense will be better with Les Miller in the middle. Jim Wilkes was nearing the end of his career.
You know, Mike, Joel Smangy, who's playing the one linebacker position, Ronaldo Turnbull playing the other one. They were both in a battle as starters last year. So Smangy having the opportunity to play outside where Ricky Jackson is left. They're not hurt too much at that position.
And certainly Turnbull filled in for Pat Swilling a year ago. Pressure on Peete. Throws short. Nice catch by Coleman. Now they're saying he trapped it. Rodney Peete has spent his entire career with the Detroit Lions. They picked him up when Bernie Kosar was lost to free agency. Look at the interception total, 53.
I don't blame him for a lot of those.
I don't either.
He's a young man that's gone through so many system changes. It's tough enough to learn one system in this league, but if you change continually, you really screw a quarterback's head up.
Shelby Hill is checked in as one of the wide receivers on 3rd and 9, the rookie from Syracuse. Peete airing it out. Intended for Hill, and he makes the catch. Underthrown. He came back. Reginald Jones couldn't. A gain of 40. Planned or not, that's one of the most effective throws in the game.
But I'll tell you something. You know why I like the way he threw that ball? This ball had trajectory. Watch what happens. Shelby's going up the field. He's pressing. He's pushing it up against Reginald Jones. But now he sees the ball. It's almost like it's coming down like a punt. Therefore, he can go back and make the play on it. The other thing is I liked is watch Rodney Peete. Here comes the pressure. He knows it's coming. He hung it up and made the throw.
Corey Fleming in the lineup. He's number 82, another rookie. Coleman hit at the line of scrimmage again at the 20. That was Robert Pig Goff out of Georgia, number 91. The only guy who really likes the nickname Pig.
Yeah, he prefers it. Don't call him,
Auburn.
His name is not Robert. His name is Pig. Defensively, the Saints are going to be a different football team. They've always played their ends in what's called a two-gap. They have to be responsible for outside and inside. They're going to let them come up the field a little bit more. This is part of Jim Mora's attack-style offense and defense.
2nd and 8. Peete with plenty of time, an excellent runner, and dives forward to the 15-yard line. Great scrambling ability for Rodney Peete out of Southern Cal. We're at the Superdome in New Orleans. 4:25 to go first half. A lot of action, and the Saints are leading at 7-3. It is the last preseason game of the year for both of these ball clubs as they gear up for the regular season. Troy Aikman's night is done along with Emmitt Smith, whom we assume Michael Irvin. 3rd and 4. Intended for Fleming. Fleming has it at the 10. He's got the first down to the 8-yard line.
Boy,
double teamed there by Buck and Jones, but they couldn't stop.
And this is an excellent throw. When your wide receivers are running quick slants, you want to keep the ball in between the numbers on the body. Watch where he puts his football. Look at the lower right part of your screen. See where it is? It's down low. People all over him. Jones is all over his back. Doesn't matter. Excellent throw.
Fleming, a free agent. He was drafted in the 3rd round by the 49ers. They couldn't come to a contract with him. Only offered him $108,000, the minimum. That's all they had. Give it to the up-back. Robert Wilson lost the ball. Saints saying they have it. And they do. Robert Wilson fumbled 3 times in the last game. One was after the whistle, but he coughed it up 3 times, and he does it again. It's not a way to make the football team. Here's Robert Wilson, who lost that last fumble, and we incorrectly attributed 3 fumbles a week ago to him. That was Lincoln Coleman who coughed him up. But Robert Wilson not much happier because he lost that one, and it's still 7-3 Saints.
But you made a real good point, Mike. You can't do that and stay on a ball club. Watch Sean Lumpkin out of the right part of your screen, number 46, does a good job. Now, you're talking about a relatively small 200-pound defensive back coming up and sticking a 240-pound running back.
Saints take over at the 4. Vaughn Dunbar pounds his way straight out to the 10-yard line.
You know what I'm looking at, Mike? I'm looking at the New Orleans Saints saying, we're going to run the football in between our guards, and we're going to see if you can stop it with your front people. And the Cowboys have not done it yet.
I think it's a tremendous sign for the Saints, and I'm sure Jim Everett is saying, if we can run the ball this way, I can hit Michael Haynes a couple of times a game deep.
If you bring up something here now, this is the kind of a situation where I think you've got to throw it up. They've got to defend the whole field. Throw it to anybody down the field deep.
There's the play action. Underthrown and caught by Quinn Early. Nice call, Mr. Theismann. Gain of 41. Again, underthrown, but it works, and Dave Thomas couldn't get back to the ball.
If you can run the football effectively, you set up play action, but this is a nice route. This is just a flat go. But look, he sees the ball all the way. Thomas is not extended the luxury of being able to follow it all the way. Goes up, gets it at its highest point. Now watch Jim Everett. Is he tough? He's hanging in the pocket. He sees people coming. He's still hanging tough.
We have reached a 2-minute warning. The Saints, who have been superb on offense, lead it. Here comes the blitz. Everett unloads, complete. Straight down the middle. Torrance Small, touchdown. What a job by Everett. Read the blitz and hit a streaking Torrance Small for 49 yards.
Jim Everett started forever. The blitzes are coming. Here comes the inside receiver on the break. It's called blitz breakoff. Jim sees it, Torrance sees it, and all he sees is the goal line ahead of him.
And they victimized the rookie former quarterback from West Virginia, Darren Studstill, who they're trying to turn into a defensive back. Morton Anderson has the point ever. Seam. Marion and Holmes deep to return. Holmes from the 9. Gaping hole. And Holmes to the 42-yard line. Winfred Tubbs made the tackle. And right now, Jim Everett looks like a winning deal for the New Orleans Saints. Lincoln Coleman, as they string out the play and bring him down behind the line of scrimmage. James Williams, number 90, chased him down from his right inside linebacker position. And Jason Garrett is the new Dallas quarterback. Free agent out of Princeton, who's been with the club a couple of years.
I like him. I like the way he's a fiery kid. All he does is get the job done. He's one of those not spectacular jobs, but he doesn't hurt you. He completes passes. He runs with the ball and moves chains.
He's in because Rodney Peete had his bell rung. We're not sure if he'll be able to return to the game or not. And Garrett throws complete. Great move by Kevin Williams to get free and pick up a couple of extra yards against Jimmy Spencer. A gain of 18. They hope that Williams will be a much more disciplined receiver than he was a year ago when he only caught 20 balls.
The key is confidence. When I had a chance to visit with Kevin in camp this year, he said he's a lot more confident. Look at him. He drives no tip to when he's coming out. That's an excellent job by a receiver. Absolutely froze Jimmy Spencer. Now he knows he doesn't want to go out of bounds. He's not done picking up yards yet.
Second season out of Miami. His impact with his club has been as a kick returner.
And will be more this year.
Garrett under pressure. And just throws that one out of bounds. Intended for Corey Fleming, the free agent rookie from Tennessee.
Here comes Joel Schmengi. Hegeman trying to block him, absolutely loses him. And a place you don't want to lose defensive linebackers and linemen is inside on a pass play.
So says the former quarterback.
Absolutely.
Second and 10, and Schmengi has played well in the preseason, now getting his chance to be a starter with the departure of Jackson. Here comes the blitz, and Garrett is cleaned as he unloaded, and it was James Williams again. Williams has been hobbled a little with an ankle injury. He didn't look hobbled on that one. Garrett did.
This is a short set by the quarterback. What happens is the line doesn't really fire out. Ha! Is that an understatement? Number 90 right here. He's just going to absolutely short set. He's coming. It doesn't matter. Perfect timing. Nobody there. Good defensive call. Part of what Steve Sidwell talked about, the defensive coordinator, more aggressive on the defensive line.
3rd and 10 with 52 seconds to go in the half. And now Dallas is going to take a timeout.
See, to me, now they're starting to change some of the younger offensive linemen in there. The most important area to protect on a 3-step drop, which is the quick hitch that Garrett tried to throw, is the center and 2 guards. They've got to be solid and strong. You can let the outside people come. The tackles can turn out. But if you're not protected in solid, that's what's happening to you. You get bopped.
Hope you'll be with us on Sunday, September 4th. It's the season premiere of NFL Game Day and Prime Time. Game Day starts at noon Eastern.
Here looking at the New Orleans Saints as a possible new home.
3rd and 10 for Garrett. 4-man rush. Under pressure, and they got there. 4 men, 3 of them met at the quarterback. Ernest Dixon, number 56, 94, Joe Johnson, the good-looking rookie out of Louisville. A pass rusher supreme.
Well, one of the questions that I think is facing the Dallas Cowboys this year is depth. You know, we know how great their starters are. That's their offensive starting unit sitting there on the bench. What's on the field right now are guys that they're hoping can fill in if anything happens. And again, doesn't look all that optimistic.
But there is no question of how good that starting unit is. And, of course, our roundtable coming up at halftime will be discussing a lot about the Dallas Cowboys, the team with a chance to win 3 straight Super Bowls.
Like every good quarterback, you know that your bread and butter is made by your offensive line. And believe me, Troy Aikman knows how important they are.
With a 13.6 average. And I remember last preseason where they said, I hope this guy can win the return job. He did more than that. High floating kick that takes a Dallas bounce. And they'll stop it near the 5-yard line with 35 seconds to go. A nice 42-yard kick. But said certainly no more than any other quarterback. If he thought that, he wouldn't have gotten it. And the Saints look like they are going to be content to run out the clock. Moore also said that The times that I have been here, we have seen him put on some exhibitions where he just blistered us. In fact, Everett's best game ever was in the Dome here 5 years ago. Threw for 454 yards against this team. And both clubs are going to head toward the sideline. We've played one half here in New Orleans. The Saints lead the Cowboys 14-3 right now. Free agent defections could be an area of weakness. Kevin Williams is in to return the kick. Williams at the goal line. And dances out to about the 22-23-yard line. Reggie Free mistakes. Jason Garrett at quarterback. Lincoln Coleman hit at the line of scrimmage. And speaking about line play, the New Orleans defensive line has done quite a job, even against the Dallas first team.
Not only the defensive line, because it really only consists of three, but that whole front seven, Mike,
right.
You're absolutely right. When you start sprinkling in the linebackers, James Williams, Ronaldo Turnbull, who we haven't really heard much about, but had a heck of a year last year with 13 sacks, you've got some guys who can really go after the quarterback.
There's Johnson, and you saw Jim Hanna, number 98, his teammates from Louisville a year ago. Hello, Joe Johnson, all 285 pounds of him, storms through.
Great play, great young man. Watch him fire off the ball. I mean, he really comes off. Look at that. Just into the second. You know, he lost 14 pounds. They really feel like he's starting to get into playing shape. I asked him, you know, being a Louisville graduate, Tom Jackson was a Louisville graduate. I said, did you ever hear that great linebacker, Tom Jackson, in Louisville? He says, no. Who was he?
That will not endear him to TJ.
Just kidding, Tom.
But this kid is a player. Garrett under pressure from Johnson again. Throws, and it's almost intercepted, and now it is. The juggling act, the catch made by Tyrone Hughes, who was trying to get more playing time in the secondary. He plays in the dime, and he was in there that time. Yeah, the pass a little slow getting to Fleming.
That's exactly right, Mike. You hit the nail on the head with that one. Watch the pressure that Jason Garrett gets. Joe Johnson really coming off the ball, really got his motor running. Jason doesn't get a chance to step into the pass. Corey Fleming. Now, Corey does a nice job of trying to break this up. He really does. He's fighting for it, but it's still in the air. Tyrone just goes over and says, well, I'll take it.
Gives some credit to Leggett, who initially broke up the pass and kept it alive. And the Saints right back to the ground game. Lorenzo Neal inside the 20. And Wade Wilson is in a quarterback.
New Orleans Saints defense in their previous preseason games had 1 turnover. Tonight they forced 3. That's what the New Orleans people are used to seeing. What they're not used to seeing is an offense throw the ball down the field.
Neal and Brown, the running backs behind Wade Wilson. Brown. Speed to turn the corner and pushed out of bounds at the 16-yard line by Larry Brown. They are looking for starters in this New Orleans running game. Derek Brown has been a starter and played well. Vaughn Dunbar has been a starter and played well. Mario Bates is the rookie who played so well in the first half. Lorenzo Neal has been a starter. There's Bates, who drew a lot of praise from Joe in the first half for his running style.
I think
they have potential.
They do, but when you look at the size, Derek Brown's only 185 pounds. Vaughn Dunbar is only 200. Mario Bates only 217. They're going to need them all.
Wilson to throw over the middle. Martin to the 4. There was a question whether Eric Martin would be back to play this year for the New Orleans Saints, the franchise all-time leading receiver, but he looks like he's going to make it.
Troy Aikman goes out of the game. You got an inexperienced Rodney Pete in the system and a Jason Garrett who's in his second year. Jim Everett goes out of the game. You got a guy who lit it up in the beginning of the year last year, Wade Wilson, who knows the system as well as anybody.
Irv Smith comes in as a tight end. Derek Brown, the single setback. And Brown straight up the middle, touchdown. The second-year man out of Nebraska. And Wade Wilson leads a quick march downfield after the turnover.
What happens is the fullback in a goal line has got to run. Vanderbeek is right there. What he's going to do is he's just going to overrun the ball. He just runs past. He gets caught in the wash, runs past the hole, winds up in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Now, if you joined us late, New Orleans is doing this against the second-team defensive line from Dallas, but in the first half, they did the same thing against the starters. The Saints have amassed a 21-3 lead. We'll be back in a moment.
This is played astounding, and the pass rush is great.
Are you enjoying this recruiting process again?
It's really getting old right now. I'm tired of it, and this is the last trip I'm taking. And
go ahead. You can visit with us.
Is that?
Well, that's why I really want to get it done by next week. I don't want teams going into the season having to release players when I arrive. I want to know the situation, and every individual on the team to know the situation when I arrive and when I sign.
How about the Cowboys?
Cowboys are a good team, but I really don't foresee Deion Sanders playing in Dallas.
Well, here's a question I had for you. Regarding the Dallas Cowboys, they are the reigning world champions. They're seeking their third. Would you have intentions, and you feel like the addition of you going someplace, can you make the difference in unseating them for a third try?
Well, the thing about the Dallas Cowboys, they've won 2 Super Bowls without a Deion Sanders. And why would they need a Deion Sanders? And if a Deion Sanders came and received the publicity he's going to receive and do what he's going to do on the field, I feel like that'll cause a little animosity and cause a disturbance amongst the Cowboys, because they've won without me, and they really don't need me to do so again.
Garrett trying to throw on 2nd and 10, gets it out in the flat to Wilson, and Wilson has a first down up to about the 38-yard line. Deion, are you setting any conditions for people? The brilliant kick returner, the defensive back. You've played a little bit of offense in the past.
Right.
Do you want to play all three?
I want to play a lot of offense. I really want to do whatever it takes to help my team win. I mean, if that's, get a tailback and catch a ball out the backfield, take some pressure off the big play receiver each team has. I mean, I would willing to do anything offensively. Interestingly enough, the Dallas Cowboys gave up one scoring pass last year of more than 20 yards, and you were the guy who caught it. I think that was a little low.
It's a 1st and 10 for the Cowboys. They have it at their own 38. Wilson, the upback, will get a couple. Ball came loose, but he got it back as he was hit by Othello Henderson.
Deion, when you look at some of the rule changes that have taken place, one that you just have to be salivating over is this: move the kickoff back to the 30, take it down to a shorter tee so the ball doesn't hang in the air, and put me back there and let me run. I mean, you're arguably the most exciting guy in the game.
Arguably, like you said. I love that rule, and it really enhances the game of football. I mean, I can't wait. I mean, ticket fans are paying $25 or up a ticket. And I want to do anything I can to get them up out of that seat. And
Lincoln Coleman.
Home special.
Okay, I got to come on over to my office over here. This is the telestrator over here, okay? I'm going to hand you the telestrator. There's the map, okay? Where are you going? You thought you were going to get out of here easy.
I tell you what, this place here.
Where are you going?
Is wonderful.
Okay, that's nice.
This place here.
That, by the way, was Miami. That's San
wonderful.
Francisco.
And this place here, what is this place?
That's Kansas City.
I'll take this place.
So Kansas City.
No, I'm just
That's
joking.
New Orleans.
All of them are
New Orleans, I'm
right
sorry.
there.
Oh, that's New Orleans down here.
Where's Cincinnati on here?
Okay, here, let me do this.
That's the Reds.
I realize it. Now you got to pick one.
That's a little tough for me to do right now.
But you're saying within a week you'll get it done.
I really want to get it done in a week. Like I said, I don't want to cause the problem of disturbing the team. I really want to go in there knowing the destination of Deion Sanders.
Is baseball strike going to get settled?
I have no idea. I really do hope so, because, I mean, we have a great team in the Cincinnati Reds. We're in the playoffs right now if the season ended today, and I really want to finish that business that we have.
Do you ever have a desire to play just one sport, or you want to do everything you can do?
I have the desire to be successful, very, very successful on and off the field.
I think you've already done that. Yeah. Deion, thanks very much for being with us, and we wish you good luck, and we know the team you signed with is going to be very happy.
Thank you very much. All right.
Take care, Deion.
4th and 6. The Cowboys will punt it away. Tyrone Hughes standing inside his own 20. Beautiful high sailing punt. Hughes going to let it go, and it takes a nice bounce. And Bill Bates down for the Cowboys to down it at the 17-yard line. A punt of 41 yards with no return. Third quarter, back in a moment. 2 campaign and won the Super Bowl. Ray Handley with the Giants, and now Barry Switzer. Of course, the selection of Switzer has been questioned. Remember, Jerry Jones is the same guy who hired the unproven Jimmy Johnson. He turned out pretty well. Vaughn Dunbar behind Wade Wilson for the Saints. Wilson throws in the flat, complete to his tight end Irv Smith, who they have high hopes for this year.
Barry Switzer has a very definite and different coaching style than Jimmy Johnson, and that has to do with not only on the sidelines but in the locker room. I'll give you an example. Second preseason game against the Raiders, when I was visiting with Troy Aikman, he felt that they played poorly, and he knew that Jimmy Johnson in past years would have just reamed everybody. Well, as it turned out, Barry was a bit more quiet about his approach, and Troy and a lot of the veterans left that locker room feeling like a little bit disappointed that they didn't get chewed out. It's a style that the team is going to have to get used to.
Wilson to Dunbar, who's pounded down at the 25-yard line. Of course, Switzer was ultra successful at Oklahoma, a very energetic, personable man, but he lost control of his program there. Several tragic incidents occurred with the Oklahoma football team, and he was forced to resign 5 years ago. Thought time had passed him by, thought he'd never get this shot.
I got to be honest with you, I think he's a perfect fit. First of all, the owner likes him. That's always a good start.
Yeah, that counts.
But one of the key things that Jerry Jones mentioned to me is the fact that he said he didn't have to bring in a new staff when he hired Barry, and that was very important to the continuity of his team.
4-man rush. Wilson has to scramble, and he may have the first down, and does. Chased from behind by Shante Carver. Here's Troy Aikman's assessment of when the new head coach could become the unquestioned leader of this team.
And Barry legitimately has to put his foot down, or has to force himself upon the football team, and not whether or not he's going to be able to do that, because there's no question in my mind that he will, but how the players respond to that at that point. I think that that's going to be the determining factor as to you know, whether he has earned the respect of this football team, and whether or not we're ready to move forward.
Vaughn Dunbar on the toss. Flag goes down late on the play. I think the point you made about the coaching staff is very important. And Barry Switzer is like Jimmy Johnson in one regard. He is a delegator of coaching responsibilities. He's not typically a hands-on guy, and I think that really helps the assistant coaches.
It does, Mike. But this is not his football team yet. This football team belongs to Troy Aikman, Michael Irvin, and Emmitt Smith, and Jerry Jones. And this is a year where Barry Switzer, whether he wants to or not, is going to have to establish himself and make this his football team. And that will only come when a decision is made on 4th down. Should we go for it? Should we not? Should we go for a 2-point conversion? How will we react? And whether they're successful.
And I think Jimmy Johnson was the best in the league at those kind of sideline decisions. He had a tremendous feel for the game. When to gamble, when not to gamble, and time fair. No, but he is certainly untested, and that's what everyone is waiting to find out. After the holding call, 1st and 20 for Wade Wilson. Dunbar about 8 yards up the middle. Let's check in with Chris Berman. Boomer.
All right, Michael, you talked about untested. Well, Marshall Faulk will be tested a lot this year. Ted Marchibroda says, I want the ball in his hands 25 times a game. He could go all the way. His first touchdown as a Colt. Harbaugh to Faulk, touchdown. Colts lead the Browns 10-7 late second.
Like that kid from the first time I saw him. He is something else.
When we did the draft show, everybody I talked to, I said, tell me about the most legitimate back in the draft. They said, that guy, Marshall Faulk, is legit.
If he gets some help along the line, he can be a Pro Bowler in a hurry. Wilson again has to scramble out of the pocket. Puts the head down, doesn't slide, gets it up to the 29. Darren Studstill made the tackle. Wade Wilson last year, 12 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, the kind of numbers you get when you run for your life, as he had to do in the last 9 games of the year.
Looked absolutely unbeatable in the first 5 games. 7 TDs, 1 interception, and then the last 9 games, got hurt for the last 2. He just fell apart, and the team fell apart. This is an interesting game for him tonight, too. And I'll tell you why right after this play, Mike.
All right, Joe, 3rd and 10. Wilson goes to the shotgun. Chased again. Somehow manages to escape. Wade Wilson. First down. Look at that move. The ball's down. He got to the 34-yard line. These are not rookie legs. He's been doing this for 14 years.
Well, his longest run last year was 42 yards, so he's capable of doing it. The reason why this is such a unique game for him is because when he was a little kid growing up, he always wanted to be a Dallas Cowboy. He dreamed of it. Watch what happens when you collapse the pocket. The defensive end gets collapsed. He comes up the middle and takes off running against his dream team. There you go. You get pushed down inside. Great job of escaping. Adjust the face mask so we can see where he's going.
Run of 16 yards, the longest run of the ball game. Neal outside, showing some power, gets near midfield. Wade Wilson had a chance to go to Dallas, and you were talking about the fact he always wanted to be a Cowboy. He told us why he came back to New Orleans. I thought it was very interesting.
Well, what he said was he felt like at the end of last year, things fell apart. And he wanted to come back here and not abandon ship, as it would be spoken, and just come back and be a part of this team. And that's really why he did it. He did take a cut in pay. I mean, he's in his it was going to be a 4th system change for him. He didn't want to move his family, but I like the fact that he decided he wanted to bail out on his teammates.
I like it too. 2nd and 6. Nice fake by Wilson. Deep down the middle. Ram wide open. Touchdown. From Wade Wilson to Steve Rem, a young man who was a freshman at Minnesota, spent a year at Northeast Louisiana, then Arkansas Monticello, Arena Ball, and Roland College.
And the stickers continue, but he does a great job of getting off the ball, and he's got some speed. Look at him turn it on. They can't catch him from either side. Now that was Larry Brown, the starting corner, that manages to catch him going into the end zone.
And the kid's a pretty good target at 6'2", 212. Anderson, the point after. And the New Orleans Saints are laying it on the Dallas Cowboys 28-3. Steve Rem with the touchdown.
Been their inability to play great run defense.
Morton Anderson to kick. Williams as the ball bounces in the end zone, and it will be what is going to be something very rare this year. A touchback in the... Tony Richardson in the backfield with Lincoln Coleman. Garrett, the quarterback, to Richardson, and he dropped the ball. The free agent rookie from Auburn.
I'll tell you what's happening right now. The Dallas Cowboys are just trying to get out of New Orleans. I mean, they want to see players execute, but the guys are dropping the ball, and it's a lackluster performance by their second units.
And the Saints are just hammering them statistically and on the scoreboard. Richardson showing some power as he got up to around the 24-yard line. The last 4 Saints drives, by the way, 63 yards for a touchdown, 96 for a touchdown, 23 for a touchdown, and 82 for a touchdown. And I don't care who you have on the field, that's got to make a coach concerned. And made one very happy, because the Saints had not been scoring points in preseason. Although Jim Morris said when our starters were in with their starters, we looked pretty good. Flag is down. So is Lincoln Coleman. It looks like the Saints jumped offside. And Gordon Carter will check it out with 2:40 to go in the quarter.
Offside, number 74, defense, penalty accepted. Repeat, third down.
Herman Carroll, 5th-round draft choice out of Mississippi State. In at left defensive end. Jumped offside. Third and a yard for Jason Garrett and the Cowboy offense. And the Saints fans are whooping it up. Coleman, first down. Pushed back as he got out to the 37-yard line. Our presentation of college football begins Thursday night at 7:30 with a weekend kickoff show presented by Russell Athletic. Chris Fowler, Craig James, and Lee Corso will preview all of Saturday's big opening games, and at 7:56, I hope you'll join me, Mike Gottfried, and Jerry Punch from Bobby Dodd Stadium in Atlanta as Georgia Tech goes up against number 8 Arizona, and we'll see the 94 version of the Desert Swarm. Garrett to Richardson. Takes a shot as he got the ball. Tyrone Leggett, who had the interception.
Michael, I'll grant that you've got second units out on the field, but I think one of the big problems that what free agency has created for the good teams is depth.
Sure.
And I think what you're seeing is that one of the teams that I don't think is going to suffer from a depth problem is the New Orleans Saints. I think they've got a lot of depth on both sides of the ball and some pretty good football players. You had a good backup situation, the quarterback situation, as opposed to the Cowboys. If they get some of their frontline people hurt, there's a big gap. That's what we're seeing here tonight.
And they have been relatively injury-free the last 2 years. That can't go forever. Apparently, Jason Garrett has gone to the Joe Theismann Hut Hut Head Bob School, and he's drawn 2 offside.
But he's getting away with it. That's the difference.
So did you.
Occasionally. It's such a tool.
The officials talking it over with Gordon McCarter.
Well, I think what they're discussing is whether the defensive player made a move to draw him off sides or not.
Offside, 2 defensive linemen, 5 yards, repeat, second down.
The defensive lineman jumped, does a nice job on the hard count. There they are over the ball. That's exactly what happens. As long as he was in that neutral zone, and the neutral zone is the width of the football, you're going to get called.
2nd and 3 after the penalty. Lincoln Coleman. And another first down for the big back. Joe Johnson makes the tackle. And now we've got a fight. Matt Joyce, a free agent rookie, and Othello Henderson, the 2-year defensive back. That's a mismatch. Joyce at 283, Henderson at 192. Othello needs to choose partners about 100 pounds lighter.
You don't have to look at names, just have to look at numbers. Guys that wear like 70s and 60s, you don't hit if you're wearing a 40 or a 20.
Well, all you got to do is
common
look
sense.
up.
That's right.
If you're looking up, don't hit them.
And if you can't see above you, you know it's a problem. And there's, there is all of Derek Kennard.
Unnecessary roughness after the play, number 20, defense.
And Henderson will get the penalty for roughing up
the big guy.
The big guy. Whoa.
Oh, tried the old elbow chop, didn't it? But he's going for the pin. Tag team. They're in the corner. Good job. That's a tough job, the officials. You never know when you're going to catch one of those fists flying. You're not wearing a helmet.
What did Red Cashin say once? He was down there giving him one of those, and it's 15 yards. And Dallas is going to let the play clock wind down and finish the third quarter. It has been all Saints here at the Dome. They lead it 28-3. Garrett. Tended for Fleming. He caught it. What a catch by Corey Fleming. Off balance, and for the third time in this game, an underthrown ball has ended up perfect.
Well, the receivers have done a great job coming back and playing on the ball, and the defensive backs have not been able to. Jason Garrett just hangs this one up down the sidelines. Corey Fleming using that speed of his. He gets up the field. The ball is underthrown, so the DB's got to get back and try and make a play on it. Isaiah Burt, he can't do it. Jason just doesn't realize how fast Corey is. One-handed, slide it into your chest, stay on your feet, fight for the yardage. Great play.
Pretty good play by Ray Wilson to prevent the touchdown. Richardson to the goal line.
What I was talking about as far as professionalism goes with Michael Irvin, Michael, is that during training camp, and he missed a lot of it, when he went back out on the field, he wasn't satisfied with the pass routes that he was running, and he was losing sleep at night thinking about the poor job that he was doing. So he kept staying after it. He used to stay with Rodney Peete, and he'd say, come on, let's work on this. This guy's just not satisfied being great. He wants to be extra great.
Richardson dives, stuffed. Nice job in the middle of the line. James Williams hit him. Tubbs was in there, the rookie from Texas, third-round draft choice.
It's a nice job by the front of the line, but watch this. There's Tubbs. Look at the job the guys up front do. The defensive line gets pushed. They allow the defensive linebackers to play on the Cowboys side of the ball.
Winfred Tubbs is a guy they really like. They think he can play inside and outside, even at 6'4", 250. Third and goal. Garrett throws incomplete. And I think Corey Fleming has a legitimate beef.
Yeah, but you know something? I'll tell you what, I agree with you, but I think part of the rule change is going to allow this. They're going to let them hand fight inside 5 yards.
Inside 5?
Don't penalize the DBs all the way. Give them a chance to play some defense. Nice protection. Jason does a good job of getting around, but the ball's thrown behind Corey. I mean, if that ball's out in front, it's probably a touchdown. Good job of defense by Othello Henderson.
And they'll go for it on 4th down. Back to the eye. Richardson did not make it. The defense and Winfred Tubbs come up big again, and James Williams helped them out. Except for 2 bad punts, the New Orleans Saints have looked like world beaters. And Nussmeier, the new quarterback.
Cut him loose. Let it fly.
And they try to go right up the middle with Derek Ned to get some running room, and he was nearly pushed back into the end zone. Let's check in with Chris Berman. Chris?
All right, Michael, while you're on the goal line there, watch Steve Berline of Arizona in the game at Mile High against the Broncos. Buy time, look for a receiver, sidestep the Bronco defense. Then as he did the line of scrimmage, he throws to Ricky Prohl Shampoo, 28 yards for a touchdown. Then, hey, Barry Switzer would love this play. Chuck Levy the option to Fred McAfee for the deuce.
Not bad. And the Saints having a little trouble getting any running room. Vaughn Dunbar is stacked up. There's another number 7 from Notre Dame doing his thing.
Yeah, you know how it is. That one's much better than the one before, though, I have to be honest with you. I think Steve Berline's just going to have a great... I think Arizona, got a shot at winning this division, the NFC East. I really believe that. this is look at the numbers that Doug Nussmeier has put up. 60% complete, 91 touchdowns. 91 touchdowns in a college career.
Jim Mora said they think he has the potential as a future starter. And you need a young quarterback on the roster. From the end zone. He's a scrambler. Lost the football. And the Saints got it back. Big break there, and it's tight end Wesley Walls, the second fumble recovery he's made tonight.
And this young man plays with a lot of enthusiasm, but he's also got to learn to protect the football. Now, okay, you want to scare him. Now tuck it away. Look at that thing. And he got caught trying to switch the ball. You get that far upfield, you just tuck it away safe and go down before somebody hits you.
Excuse me, that was Pat Evans, 95 instead of Wesley Walls, 85, who got the recovery. And Nussmeier fumbles the snap from center. He'll be buried in the backfield. There's a flag down on the play. Cowboys may have been offside. It looked like Shante Carver jumped early.
When I was watching practice, the Saints practice this week, I was watching no ref.
Offside, number 96 defense, 5 yards, repeat first down.
It is Shante Carver.
But I noticed that when Doug Nussmeier took a snap from center, we were always taught to try and keep our hands together so that you've got a place in case the ball is a bad snap. He separates his hands, I think, too much when he has his hands on the center's rear end and when he's taking the exchange. I think his left hand, or actually in his case, his right hand gets just too far away.
And he moves it just at the end to accommodate the snap. Dunbar hit at the line of scrimmage, and there's another flag down.
I want to show you what we're talking about. That one's holding against the Saints, but I want you to focus on his hands. Well, there they are. Watch his right hand, that one over there. Watch what it does when the ball is snapped. See how he opens it up? See this gap that's created? That's what scares the living daylights out of me. You get into bad weather, and you get that much of an exposure for one hand just being on the ball, you're going to be playing rugby all night. I mean, it's going to look like Australian rules football because the quarterback's going to have it all over the ground.
It makes you wonder how something like that can be missed.
Well, I've said this all along. I just don't think that there are enough people that are technically schooled to teach the quarterback position. But he also, you throw 91 touchdown passes. The kid hasn't exactly been unsuccessful.
Doing something right.
But again, you can always get better. And I think that's something that can help prevent error in his case.
1st and 15 after the penalty. Vaughn Dunbar takes a shot as he got up to about the 12-yard line.
Chad Hennings, they're really counting on him to come through and fill one of those rotating tackle positions. He's number 3 right now, and they need him.
In terms of weightlifting, he's the strongest player on this team.
He's an interesting combination. They lost Jimmy Jones, and they lost Tony Casillas, who, by the way, I spoke to Jerry Jones, will not be a Dallas Cowboy. He made that very clear to me. He's faster than Jimmy Jones, and he's stronger than Tony Casillas. And guys like Jeff Coat need him to spell him.
Bench presses 510 pounds, squat 700. Nussmeier under a lot of pressure. Loose ball, no whistle yet. And the Saints have it again out to the 18-yard line. So since Nussmeier has been in there, the ball has been bouncing all over the place.
Shante Carver, this time he starts out against Willie Williams, takes the hard inside, and Nussmeier really doesn't have a chance. It's the thing I've said before. If you're a guard or a tackle, you cannot give up the inside because that's where the quarterback is going to be. You got to know where the guy is.
So it's 3rd and 6. The Saints have fumbled 3 times, but they have not lost one in contrast to Dallas. Nussmeier with time to throw this time and throws. Is it intercepted? No, incomplete. Dave Thomas had a shot at it. Now the Dallas coaching staff going nuts on the sideline.
That's Dave Campo, the secondary coach.
They thought Thomas had the interception.
Right part of your screen, upper right part of your screen. Thomas lays out. Now, it looks like he makes the catch. The question is does the ball hit the ground? I don't care. That's a heck of an effort anyway.
Tough to tell.
I think the Cowboy coaches had a pretty good look at that one.
Shelby Hill waits at his own 38-yard line. The speedster from Syracuse for Barnhart punt. Hill at one time in his collegiate career timed at 4.23. Not going to have a chance to return this one. Makes the fair catch at the 45. A 38-yard punt. And no.
Right is Carl Smith, the offensive coordinator and quarterback coach.
Lincoln Coleman gets it out to about the 49-yard line. There's an old saying that great backs get better as the game goes on. Emmitt Smith hammered that point home last season. In the first quarter, he averaged 4.1 a rush. In the second quarter, it jumped up to 5.5. Then Emmitt rang up 6 yards a carry in the third quarter. And in the fourth, well, he went off the scale, an NFL leading 6.3 yards a rush. Ring that bell. Coleman and Richardson, the backs behind Garrett. Throws short and complete for about 5 yards. Throws to his tight end, John Davis, number 36.
You know, it was interesting last year, Mike, when he came back into camp and became the Cowboy running back again after a couple weeks out. He told the guys, he said, listen, you guys just carry me to December, and I'll take care of you after that. And that's exactly what he did. Now he's saying, hey, look, we have to do it all together as a team.
Of course, Emmitt wrote this book, The Emmitt Zone. You do that when you lead the league in rushing 3 straight years. You're a Super Bowl star, and here's all sorts of movement up front. But there haven't been as many books from the Cowboys as a whole in the
False
last 2
start
years.
before the snap, 75 offense, 5 yards, still third down.
Matt Joyce, the rookie.
You talk about endorsements. Here's one of the, I think, one of the bones of contention between Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson was any endorsement contracts that Jimmy Johnson would sign and do, that money went to the Dallas Cowboys, not to Jimmy Johnson. So Jerry Jones, you know, he basically said, I don't want to have another Mike Ditka situation where he's bigger than life.
Well, he was anyway.
But Emmitt certainly is.
3rd and 6. Garrett throws to Fleming, who had it knocked away. This is a big series for Fleming and Hill. They're battling for a wide receiver spot. And coaches evaluate every single frame of film they get in the game.
He made a great catch just down around the goal line. And on this one, it's a perfectly thrown ball, and he can't handle it.
Drop back inside his 15 for the punt. We're down to 6 minutes and 15 seconds in the fourth quarter. Saints in total control. John Jett straight up the shaft. Hughes comes way up and lost the ball. An easy fair catch play for Hughes, and the Cowboys have a shot at another fumble here in the fourth quarter. And they have it. The Dallas Cowboys at the 23 have recovered the muff punt. And with excellent field position. Lincoln Coleman to the 15-yard line. Of course, Derek Lassick still injured. And he and Coleman fighting for the backup job behind Emmitt Smith. And as we saw last year when Emmitt held out the first 2 games, this game anymore, you have to have backups.
You have to have backups everywhere, quarterback position. And if you're a one-back offense, which really the Dallas Cowboys are. I mean, Emmitt Smith carried the ball 283 times last year. And Darryl Johnson didn't even dent that.
Coleman dives inside the 10. That will be good enough for a first down. It'll be 1st and goal at the 9. We are at the Superdome in New Orleans. And our storyline from the Dome reads, way to go, New Orleans Saints. Bates, 62 yards rushing while he was in there. The Saints have 21 of their 28 points off takeaways. And the Dallas Cowboys 2 goal-to-go situations and come away with nothing. They have another one here. Garrett for the end zone. Wide open Corey Fleming. Fleming was behind everybody in the corner of the end zone.
Good pressure, though. Jason Garrett did not have time to really survey the field. Had to unload it. I don't know how many more wires they're going to have running out of quarterbacks' helmets. I'm sort of glad I'm retired. You can electrocute it. You've got audibilizer wires. You've got microphones to coaches.
Well, it's the first step on the way to robo quarterback.
I was just going to say, that's exactly where they're going.
Lincoln Coleman trying to find a place to run and can't. Big Goff got him from behind.
They've got these audibilizers that we've talked about them down inside the 20 so that you can hear them. There's one there. There's another one over here. Another one down in here. And there's two. Oh, sorry, those aren't there. I moved them. You got two here. What they are is so the sound's emitted out onto the field and the wide receivers can hear better. Now, it's my understanding they're not going to be used this year. There's the big version of them. They're still somewhat in the experimental stages. But I think they have a value.
3rd and goal from the 9. Garrett throws to Fleming, and there's a flag. That was obvious interference on Tyrone Hughes, who got there about a step and a half early.
Pass interference, number 33, defense, automatic first down.
It's a good read by Tyrone Hughes. He's not even looking over here. He's looking back here at the quarterback. If he just keeps running, he's got a chance to pick this off. He makes the break, but the ball is thrown so far in front of Corey Fleming, he can't make a play on it, winds up with an interference call.
1st and goal again for Dallas. Coleman lost the ball, recovered in the end zone. They will take it back. Now the officials, was it a touchdown or not? Ron Stone recovers in the end zone. The officials trying to decide whether they spot it at the half-yard line or it's a touchdown. And it's a touchdown. If it had been a 4th down play, he was the only one who could recover it.
That's right. That's the old Dave Casper rule.
Exactly.
Now here he is running with the ball. There, the ball is out. There's his knee. That's a fumble, so he's not down. The ball trickles into the end zone, and they wind up with the touchdown. Good call by the officials.
Boniol on for the point after and has it. So the Cowboys cut the deficit to 28-10 with 3:47 left. Johnson and Darryl Mitchell are deep to receive. Mitchell to the 20. Mitchell shoved out of bounds at midfield by Dave Thomas. And Bill Bates, the senior member of the Dallas Cowboys. Saints take over at the 42. Vaughn Dunbar wrapped up by Hennings as he got to the 45. Let's check in with Chris Berman. Chris?
Bobby, 2 years in a row, 0-4. In the Colts-Browns game, Mark Rippon fires, but Leonard Humphreys with the interception, and all together now. He could go all the way. Hey, the Colts could have a 4-0 preseason, guys.
Yeah, Chris, but we've seen that 4-0 preseason stuff before.
You know, I think that scares a coach more than anything, because a lot of false hopes get built up in the preseason. They really mean nothing but evaluation time.
2nd and 7. But I guess it means they've been playing pretty well. Dunbar doesn't have a chance, hitting the backfield and dumped Shante Carver with a big play from the right defensive end.
Shante Carver is just going to get bigger and stronger. I mean, they really, Jerry Jones and the coaching staff really liken him to Tony Tolbert when he came in. Shante Jones has got to put on about 30 pounds. Tolbert was only about 230 when he came in. He's up to 260. Carver's only at 240. They feel he can add 20 pounds easy on that frame.
And they wanted him to come to camp at 255. There's some guys that just don't put on a lot of bulk. And there is Tony Tolbert. He and Haley did not play tonight because of minor injuries, but they'll be ready to go 10 days from now when they're doing it for real. Nussmeier to the shotgun on 3rd and long. And dropped again. This time, Todrick McIntosh, another rookie out of Florida State. Big number 90 gets the sack. And we will wind it down to the 2-minute warning here. Charles Haley, the premier pass rusher for the Cowboys.
He's starting quarterback.
Saints will have to punt it away on 4th and long.
What?
Shelby Hill. Blinding speed, can't get him outside this time, and he's knocked down to 28. Flags come in on the play, a return to 5. Derek Ned downfield to make the tackle. And it's a holding call by the Cowboys. Take a look at the NFC West.
2 quarterback combinations in all the league.
Very true. Richardson and Coleman are the running backs behind Garrett, and Lincoln Coleman will carry for about 3. Tripped up by Jim Hanna, the rookie from Louisville.
You know, Jim Hanna's an interesting story. Everybody went down to look at Joe Johnson. And rightfully so. Joe Johnson was a great player there. But when the coaches would come in, everybody come in and say, well, we want to see Joe Johnson. Say, yeah, he's over there. But I want you to see this Jim Hanna guy. He's really something. Oh, go see Jim Hanna.
Not as physically gifted, but a guy who plays very smart, gives 100% every play. Lincoln Coleman again as the Cowboys with no desire to try to do anything except run out the clock, it appears.
One other thing on Jim Hanna I'd like to mention is right now with only 7 rounds of the draft, a guy like Jim Hanna probably would have been drafted 8th, 9th round. The term free agent really doesn't have the same meaning in today's football that it had a year or 2 years ago or going back in time. This is a guy that could have been drafted, but he just didn't quite fit into that top 7 that you think is going to be there. He'll probably make their ball club. And because he's worked hard, and probably because he would have anyway.
Jim Morris says he's one of those guys with the knack on a pass rush. He can just slip by somebody. Knows how to attack. Lincoln Coleman again diving forward. He will not get the first down. They'll mark it up around the 28-yard line. And only 20 seconds to go in the game, and neither team sees fit to extend it. The Dallas Cowboys will open with the Steelers next Sunday, and the New Orleans Saints will play the Kansas City Chiefs. And Barry Switzer will go at it for real for the first time. He and Jim Moore greeting each other in the middle of the field. Look out for New Orleans. I just have a feeling Jim Moore really excited about this football team. Final score, the New Orleans Saints 28, the Dallas Cowboys 10.